Hello crafty friends, Amanda with Crafting with Amanda here, and I get to bring you my project for December of 2022, and we are focusing on the Operation Smile stamp set. I have been working on heritage albums. If you haven't been following my channel, I have a whole bunch of photos that have been landed at my doorstep, and so they're faded, and for me, I have to find that balance of using some fun papers but not having the paper overwhelm the photos. So this is with the Flower Shop papers from the Core Idea book, and then I pulled out some of this Irresistible paper, and when I put it to the side you'll be able to see that it's kind of that plaid in the bottom right corner that I'm using, but there's letters with the Irresistibles and all of that, so check that out. And then we are focused this month on this Operation Smile stamp set, and I will talk to you more about Operation Smile, but this stamp set, I don't know, it just seemed to lend itself to these photos of Easter. And then, like I said, I went through and grabbed papers from that Flower Shop collection, excuse me. And when I had my photo, both my brother's jacket and I believe my dad's are in that dark navy blue. So the sapphire cardstock isn't so dark, but it helps, I think, bring out, it's a contrast to the brick of the background, and then the flowers on the bush behind each of us is a real pale yellow. And one of the things that I wanted to show you is the photo with my parents, and I am standing in the bottom left in front of my mom. It's further back, so if I were to put the other with my grandparents and my brother and I in front of it, it actually made it more difficult to see the people in the photo behind. So I really wanted to make sure that we were in front just to help give more balance to those two photos that are similar but not necessarily equal. I hope that makes some sense. Now here I have talked over, which is a good thing, me playing around with these frames from that Irresistible paper. I cut some of it out already, but I played with this a lot, and I ended up coloring it in and realizing I needed a bigger frame, and so you'll get to see some of that later, that wow, there's more framing there. And I decided, again, I didn't want the papers to overwhelm the photos, but I wanted some color and interest on this layout. So here I'm just using, it's not a 1/2 inch, it's 3/8 is actually the size of these, which is halfway between 1/4 and a 1/2 inch. So I just cut some strips out of the papers, and I don't want them to go all the way across the page, so here you can see that I'm just lining them up and trimming them, and I cannot cut a straight line even if it's only a 1/2 inch long, so I end up having to trim those later. This was a layout that it just, I knew in my head, I thought what I wanted to do, but I just had a hard time getting there. So now I'm taking the Irresistibles, and I'm just using the 3 primary colors, Candy Apple, Sapphire, and I think I used Lemonade. Yes. I'm starting with the Lemonade because it'll end up blending with some of the other colors. So you will get some orange tones, but not, I'm trying to avoid doing the rainbow blending. I really wanted to stick to the primary colors here. And you just have to, for me, if you go just light with the inks, then you'll get a nice faded, but I wanted some more color into it. So I didn't want it super bright. I don't know if this is going to make any sense, because I wanted it to kind of match the intensity of the photos. It ends up being a little too bright. I thought about bringing in some vellum, and that just wasn't going to work for me. But after you add your color, I just go ahead and take this little shop cloth and buff off the extra ink that may be on top of those Irresistible or the Resist stripes on your paper. And it's just something to keep in mind, because I didn't do it when I did the second frame here, and I end up getting ink, you'll see, on the back of my photos, but it's on the back so you don't really see it, but you'll see that I have a bigger piece of frame, which just gave more balance to the 2 photos I have. So I thought, and you don't get to see this, but this is my 3rd sheet of background paper of the sapphire paper, because the first 2 times that I did the embossing, it came out fine. It was just in the wrong spot. So you can see here where I'm using my finger as the marker for where the corner of the block goes. So now I know for sure this is where I want it. And I ended up putting those photos all together, which again I didn't show you because I needed those to reference where to put these stamping images. So I will have a future project, I'm sure, that uses these embossed images that I have on sapphire cardstock. I'm actually, now that I'm into using this stamp of the month, it's called Change the World, I am loving it. I can see so many cool things that can be done. Go ahead and emboss this in like a silver or a black embossing powder and then do some chalking behind. I just think that would be really cool. And on some paper, or going ahead and getting a dark paper like a dark black and embossing it with gold or silver. This particular flower and the outline and the details in it, I really like it. So here I'm going to take it's more, I call it like the long stem rose. I'm not sure. To me these look kind of like the tea roses that used to grow on bushes up on the farm. So I'm using that kind of, I'm going to frame it with the irresistible frame paper there. And so I'm just doing this in stages. Like I said, this is my 3rd sheet of sapphire cardstock that I'm using for this project. I was messaging with Kim Ferguson, who's in this group of amazing gals and makers with heart, and I was just like, those times that layouts they're hard. It's just, you kind of know what you want to do, but you can't get there, or you're making mistakes. When I was creating this, I was making mistakes, and I think part of it was, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I have been fighting a flu, but I got on some steroids, and I'm feeling much better. Still at the ends of it here, so my voice is a little lower than it normally is. And you can see kind of the direction this is going. I thought I was going to do another vignette, kind of a corner to corner for these flowers, but it felt too heavy, too big. It was taking away from the focal in the upper corner. So I'm going to go back to maybe adding a flower up there. And I kept all of this in just to show you my process. I will have some chapters included with this video, so if you don't want to watch all this, you kind of just like to see the beginning and the end, or you don't want to hear all of that, you can either speed up the playback that YouTube has, or you can click on the different little chapters and it'll bump you through the layout. And you can see on my Versamat is where some of my extra embossing powder goes. I end up cleaning that off later. I do use a shop towel with water to make sure that I get all of those pieces. For me, that's just the way to contain my mess. But don't these look beautiful embossed with that white? I'm just loving it. I could see it, like I said, silver, gold, black. Off camera, I stamped some of these and did some fussy cutting. Like I said, I'm fighting this flu, and so I was doing some Netflix binging. It was really Peacock binging, but so I was doing some fussy cutting while I was watching Top Chef episodes from seasons past. And then I decided on here I wanted to cut out a little bit more of the background. I don't normally do that when I do fussy cutting. I just kind of keep it simple around the outside edges, similar to what a die would cut out, that kind of a shaping. And I have some more of these pieces. I wasn't sure how many I wanted to do. I didn't do a whole lot. I stamped a whole lot, and the rest of them are in with the stamp so that later if I want to use them I can and fussy cut them later. But for now I just fussy cut some that I thought maybe I would play with. And once I was looking at it, I realized it felt out of balance, so I cut 1 inch off from the upper and the left side, and then I'm going to mat this on other paper. And it's funny, I'm frustrated with this vignette of photos and frames, and it keeps moving on me, and so I go ahead and I'm like, all right, just glue it down. Have you seen what I did wrong yet? So I'm going to glue this down, which is kind of okay and kind of a oops. Have you figured it out? I'll show you here in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down, and it's literally about right here after I've smushed it, kind of tapped it lightly, then I'm like, oh, what are you going to do for your stripes in the middle? And then I'm like, all right, I'm not dealing with that now. I'm going to see what frames I'm going to put on this. So I'm auditioning all these different papers from the Flower Shop collection. I don't know about you, but none of these are working for me. So I figured out, all right, I just need to pop this off. It won't be a big deal. I just used the ATG tape. It'll pop off. Well, I also use the foam tape, and I'll tell you, when the foam tape is down, it doesn't matter how lightly you press it, it's down. You're either ripping papers or you're leaving it where it's at. So not wanting to get into cardstock number 4, Sapphire, and do all of the heat embossing again, we're just gonna cut the pieces and stick them in from either end. I colored these off camera, and I don't know if you saw, but I had originally colored the blue flowers with the Sapphire shimmer brush. These are all shimmer brush colored. I am not a colorer. It's not something I enjoy. I just do quick and dirty. So I didn't show you that. There's other people that are amazing colorers. That's not me. And then I got this all glued down, and I went and did my journaling on the computer. I have a printer back and working, so I have this option again in my life. And so I'm going to do the journaling down here, and I also typed up the date, and I was thinking they would all be down there together. It ends up that it felt crowded, so I'm going to move the date and try to find a space for it. And I kind of like it there, just over the photo. I knew when I was cutting out my letters, I had originally cut them out in white, and I thought, oh, maybe this is just going to be too stark. So I went ahead and again cut them out with the die I cut letters, in the red, and I really like how the red is turning out. But I almost feel like I've squared in the photos too much. I have the frame, I have red now on the 4 corners, so I went ahead, as you saw, and took that one piece of red out. And for me, that just changed the whole look of the layout. So I had also cut the red in just a single layer of cardstock, thinking I would do a shadow image with it. Quickly I realized that that just was not enough, so I went back to the red and decided I would be happy with that. And we're finally coming to the end of the layout. It's like, oh, this is it. This is what I wanted. So I went to my stash and grabbed out some white enamel dots, and I'm just going to figure out where I want them around the layout. And like I said, the more I was working with this stamp set and the Operation Smile sayings, it's like, oh, I need to do a set of cards with these. So don't be surprised in the future if you see some sapphire cardstock that has white embossed flowers on it showing up on cards here in my future. It's a sweet little layout. It tells the story of us going to West Virginia. We would leave when my dad got home from work at 5:30, like my brother and I and my mom would be ready to go, so my dad got to go home, go to the bathroom, and then we headed right out. It was about a 6.5 hour drive, so we didn't get in until closer to 1 a.m. Be sure to go check out what all the other girls are doing with their Change the World stamps. If you haven't subscribed to all of our channels, you can do that. It's a nice way to help us. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.